Hello everybody, I'm Paul.
And I'm Andrew.
And welcome back to the Fan Voice. Today we are doing something we haven't done in a very long time, a fan shout out.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
been a while.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, we haven't ignored the fans. We've had a lot more guests.
No, we definitely have.
That's what in the between time.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what we've been focusing on. Is we've had a lot of guests on.
Yeah, absolutely. But here came some articles, or some comments on an article I wrote a little while ago that were just fantastic, and I don't think we could have passed by them because they just give great information. First off, the article is playing RPGs as an adult, and I wrote that basically during while I was playing Final Fantasy VI, and just this frustration I had with like just playing this game and dealing with all the obligations of an adult, you know? It's just like, I was making progress, but at the same time, even when I was playing, I was like, okay, just walk through as fast as possible. I only have this much time. I got to do this, and the big problem with that is like, I was really lacking a full sense of immersion, which is a huge element in video games, you know?
Yeah.
So, I posted this article up about, like, my struggles with that and just asking the people, do you struggle with the same thing? If not, how do you overcome this, basically?
Right.
And we had a few really deep comments.
Really good responses.
Yeah, absolutely. The first one comes from Melissa Hernandez, who says, I'm going to take it a step further and say, for myself at least, not only is it hard to find time to get that full immersion, I seem to have lost interest in trying to immerse myself. Adult responsibilities, stresses, relationships, they seem to have me so bogged down that those old interests, RPGs, video games, etc., are hard to get into anymore. I seem to have lost a little bit of my childlike sense of wonder, whimsy, and adventure. That's scary to think about. Being an adult isn't as great as it seemed when I was a kid.
So, yeah, that one kind of hits home because I 100% agree with her on that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think lately. Mm-hmm. And that's the tough part, is that sitting down to play the game, I know, and we're going to get into this later, because Vance has a good point. But we're going to get into this a little bit later. But just, it does seem like you sit down and you don't have time.
Yeah.
You just are like, okay, well, in an hour, I have to do this before I go to bed because I have to get up for work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's definitely different from being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But so it just feels weird.
Yeah.
It just feels very strange. You do lose a lot of it, and that's my problem. I haven't been playing a lot of video games lately, just in general, because of that.
Just all the obligations.
Yeah.
Like I have so many more things to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Basically.
It is absolutely really difficult, you know? But as Vance and Dewayne describes, I would say it's not impossible. And just small comments about just being an adult, you know? It's like, I would say it has its own rewards, but you definitely have to work really hard for them. Especially to get into the mindset of, like, the childlike whimsy and wonder. Yeah. Or maybe even approach it in different ways, you know? Yeah. Kind of like, what is it? With the Kingdom Hearts article I wrote a little while ago, is just like, of course I didn't feel exactly the way I did when I first played it, when I was like a freaking 12-year-old, but I had a lot of fun just going back and analyzing, like, what exactly, like, triggered that in me. Right. And that did give me a little warmth, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, the other part of this is we may have lost some of that, and, you know, video games aren't the main thing right now, but I seem to have found that elsewhere. Yeah. In a lot of other content, like in a lot of other entertainment, really. Right. Like, I watch a lot of kind of different movies now because of that, or TV shows is a big thing for me recently. Yeah. Where I'm just kind of like looking for something new. And I'll get into this later too, once we kind of look at this. But that's actually a main thing why I'm not, oddly, why I'm
not
playing
too broken
video games
up
right
about.
now. Yeah, why
video
I'm not
games?
too broken up about playing video games right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The way you put that, like just analyzing like deeper and like more mature movies kind of things, it makes me think that like maybe whimsy at a certain point evolves into inspiration.
Yeah, no, and I think that's definitely true, and it's still adventure, and it's still
absolutely.
a sense of wonder, but it's different. It's definitely different.
Yeah,
and it evolves, and I mean, like I said, I'm looking for something kind of new.
Right.
And in a lot of video games I'm playing, I'm not finding anything new. I'm finding the shooter or the RPG or the MOBA or whatever it may be, or the fighting game.
It's still like much more steps back. It depends on how you look at it, but like to the genre of film, if you're looking at like what every frame means or like what the dialogue or writing, the hidden meanings behind it, it's like some video games do a good job, but they definitely haven't had as much experience diving deeper into that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also just, tastes change a little bit, and I kind of move on to something for a while. I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to go back to playing video games. In fact, I already am going back to playing video games, but I mean, I think I just find it elsewhere for a while. Anyway, let's talk about Vance and Dewayne's though, because they're fantastic. Too.
Absolutely. Thank you again for the comment.
Yeah,
Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa. That was awesome.
Okay, so Vance says, I think one really important thing to consider is the volume of games available and the strange need to play as many as we can so we don't miss out on every little reference. I think it's less an issue of time and more of an issue of mindset. For starters, we should relinquish the feeling of needing to experience every game we can get our hands on. That's an impossible task. And in fact, there's some value in having some different experiences than our friends. Because then you can really speak passionately about these stories you were able to immerse yourself in, as if they were a personal adventure. The next step in disillusioning ourselves to the idea that childhood was so liberated and free, it's a matter of perspective, which, through the lens of nostalgia, is often distorted. Between homework, parental restrictions, bedtime, etc., we probably didn't have as much extra time as we feel we did. The truth is, we just perceive time differently because we have so many stresses and concerns on top of the fact that, to a 10-year-old, time is twice the proportion of the experience per month as that of a 20-year-old, which is a really absurd and exaggerated way of saying an hour then felt longer than it does now, but remains true as long as we consider time in those terms. That said, if you can allow yourself to experience time in the present, which is hard to do as an adult, you'll find it is totally possible to have the same experiences you did as a kid, barring the fact that you've simply had more experiences as an adult. So ideas that would captivate the imagination of a child might now fit into known tropes such as character archetypes. In conclusion, the only real advice I can give is to let games be almost meditative or a ritualistic experience. You have to let go of your concerns, biases, and neuroses. Those are the true differences between then and now, not time. Set an alarm or something so you aren't watching the clock, if that's what it takes, and set it with an allowance for slight irresponsibility. So if you have to find a save point, you can do that without the guilt or eye bags the next morning. In fact, once in a while, allow yourself to make a bad choice and stay up 2 more hours than you should. It'll bite you in the rear like it did when you were a kid, but that's part of what inspires that connection to the game. If you exercise proper moderation, then on occasion you let yourself be a rebel to your own rules, it will feel significant and liberating, and that will create a memory which reinforces it as an experience. When you engage with with things in an experimental fashion, that creates the feeling of immersion.
So that's a fantastic comment.
Ooh,
first of all,
yeah.
And I just want to. He kind of spends the first part talking about time and how really we have the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with him on that, and I understand what he's saying. I think he's saying, man, it just feels like you have so much more time, right, as a kid. And I kind of understand what he's saying, but I think objectively for me, I have less time. Yeah. And it's not even just a matter of I went to school from 7 to 3:30. Right? Because that's kind of the same time that I go to work now. Yeah. Sort of. And with I was in marching band, so in the fall.
And then homework on top of
that. Right, it seems the same. But then I have to conclude that I now have to make all my meals myself. I now have to drive myself to work. I now have to get exercise because I don't normally get exercise like I did when I was in high school. I have to do a lot of the chores that I normally, like when I was a kid, I would, take out the trash, do the dishes. Now you do that all yourself, and you do it every day. There's a lot more things going on. Yeah. And for me, for somebody like me who I don't want to buy dinner on my way home. Right. And eat fast food. I want to cook a meal. Yeah. Or do something a little more involved. That took me an hour today to cook a meal, get everything prepared, and then do dishes. Right. Right? After. So, I have less time. This is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I have less time. I understand what you're saying, Vance, but just objectively, I have less time. And also I think the part of it, what we're doing now. What you and me absolutely. Do. We also have to think about, in this day and age, everybody has a side project. Everybody I know at work does something on the side. Right. That takes up hours of their time outside of work. Yeah. So we also have to think about that as well. I'm not going to sacrifice doing this or the other projects that I want to do completely to sit down and play a video game for 5.5 hours or whatever, right? I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So, and that also was not really a thing when I think it was a thing for a lot of people when they were younger, maybe. It's like there's people that just went 110% and had a social life. These are not the same kind of people that played video games for 6.5 hours. They're kind of two different people. Yeah. There were I knew a bunch of people in high school that were always doing something. They were in 5 different extracurricular activities. Yeah. They had a part-time job. I didn't. Right? I had band. Yeah. And I wrote occasionally. And I played a shit ton of video games. Right? Yeah. So, I have a lot less time for sure as an adult. But what he says about letting go of concerns, biases, neuroses, whatever, that is a very good point. Time is a factor, but he's saying, it shouldn't be the factor.
Right, exactly.
It shouldn't be the thing that's I just don't have time. Hey, listen, you might have time once a week. Sit down and play a game. Yeah. And then if you really get into it...
When you do get that time, you have that time. Don't let the fact of time leak into your head while you're playing the video game kind of thing.
That's the thing that I think is the hardest thing to do, but that's the thing I agree with him. It's not the main factor. It shouldn't be. Right. Right? Okay, you can say, and this is kind of the wrong way to put this, but I'm going to block off time to play video games. Well, that's fine. Just not halfway through video games go, I really should be doing something else. I really should be doing that. Yeah. I don't want to, but I really should be. That's what you have to get rid of. Right. And I totally agree with him on that. 110%. Because that's my problem. Is that's where I come from.
I could be doing so many other things kind of thing. Right. Dude, the voice of my dad ringing in my ear. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and seriously, that's a really good point, it's hard to do that as an adult. And I know that because that's what I've struggled with the past couple months. Yeah. Is I cannot sit down and play a video game. I can sit down and watch a couple episodes of a TV show or something because it feels shorter. Yeah. It feels more I don't know why. It just feels like, oh, that's easier. Okay, and I don't have to worry about it.
One of the biggest games you got on your plate right now is Walking Dead, which you can, but you can't let go of within like 2 hours kind of thing.
Right.
Because they're all episodes. And like with Final Fantasy VI, it's like, okay, like super long old school RPG, like long gaps kind of thing,
right,
you know?
Right. One of the other things that I like what Vance says here is, he says, that said, if you can allow yourself to experience time in the present, which is hard to do as an adult, agree, you'll find it totally possible to have these same experiences you did as a kid, barring the fact that you've simply had more experiences as an adult, so ideas that would captivate the imagination of a child may now fit into known tropes.
Right.
That is 100% true, and that's actually goes kind of back to...
Kind of like what we were talking about.
Right, and that kind of goes back to what Melissa said, where she's like, I feel like I've lost my childlike sense of wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, if you're playing those same games. Because you've already experienced that.
That's true.
And you already know that. And then at some point you get to... Because this happens to me all the time. You get to something and you're like, God, I have seen that so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. Something new, please. Just something new.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I do that, 100%. And actually, very recently, I told my friend, like, oh, maybe I'll go back and play some RPGs. And he's like, dude, you were just complaining about you don't want anything like Skyrim, because you played too much Skyrim.
Yeah.
Don't go back and play those RPGs. Like, that's not what you want right now. You want something different.
Right.
Because you're that kind of person. And I was like, you know what? You're probably right. That's probably not the game I should start right now. I should go on a different, or at least a different setting. Maybe I should try Fallout.
Yeah.
Play Fallout. I was talking about that
with
somebody. They're like, don't go for the fantasy setting. Try Fallout, because Fallout's at least a different setting.
Because, I mean, of course, like, I would say, to a degree, there's a lot of us, like, stuck in certain genres, and I think it would, like, just reap a great reward of just experiencing something completely new, just once.
Right.
Even if it doesn't have the same impact, it's like, I didn't feel those things before.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that could spark something special. I think my favorite thing about Vance's comments is in the beginning, when he says, we have a need to play as many things as we can to understand references. And I think that hits the nail so hard in our culture, especially the con culture. It's like, this goes beyond games, beyond, like, movies. Like, for me, it's like comics. Like, that hit me hard the most, because, like, I'm trying to, like, digest the stories of, like, all these different comics with, like, YouTube summary videos. It's like, okay, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to get this. I want to reach out to as many people as possible. And it's like, it comes to a point where it's not fun anymore. It becomes like a random, like, job or something.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, and that's a really good point, actually. That is a really good point that he makes in here. That, because you talked about the con scene, and that's absolutely what it is. Sometimes nerds like to make things into a competition because we don't come across other people like us. And it serves as a challenge of, like, you seem like you're a nerd, but are you really a nerd? Let's test that. And it's kind of a bad habit. Yeah. I do it still. It's a bad habit.
Or you're just, like, I don't know. I think a part of it for me is, like, you're so desperate to get other people to feel what you felt with your favorite things, you know?
Because you're trying to connect.
Every 2 seconds, we've done it, they've done it, you haven't seen this, how have you not seen this? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because a lot of those things we don't have anyone to share with.
Right.
So you want as many people when you meet somebody who might be interested in it.
Yeah.
Compared to Joe Schmo coworker who is not going to be interested. Absolutely, you're going to tell them to watch it.
Yeah.
Because they have way more of a chance to go watch it, enjoy it, and then come back and talk to you about it.
Right. Exactly.
So that's definitely a good point, and that's why, like, people keep telling me, "Oh, you got to play this. Oh, you got to play this. You got to play this. Oh, this is really good." And then next thing I know, I feel like I just don't know a lot of what people are talking about, either on the internet or in my actual social circles. I think he's got a point here, and I take his point to kind of mean you got to get over it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to play everything.
Right.
You're just not. And that's a very good point, because I'm not.
No.
And I don't have time right now. I've been debating buying a PS4. I don't have time. I have things to play on PS3.
Yeah.
And when I get back to playing video games, which is hopefully soon, pretty consistently, like, I should just focus on that, because I have so many things to play.
Right.
So, that I want to.
Absolutely.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
This isn't a chore. These are actually things that I do want to play.
Right.
And I think there's only really one thing on the PS4 that I want to play. But I feel like I have to keep up with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should go buy a PS4 so that I can play all the things that I missed. It's like, well, no. I really want to play The Witcher, but I can wait.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's the one thing
you
on next gen.
A measure of guilt shouldn't be integrated into you playing a game or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, once we like decide only a very like narrow specific path, we're gonna have some like social barriers with other nerds who have played like other different things.
Right.
But I think a great way to break that wall, even if you haven't played this or even if they haven't played what you played, just explain why you love this so much in great detail, and they'll just like get like. They'll get a feel for that passion off you and just really appreciate the experiences that you've experienced and maybe even inspire them to play what you've played kind of thing. Atticus is great at that. Holy moly.
He is. Yeah, that's a very
no matter what it is, he can tell the most like riveting story about it. It's like, I have to play this now. Holy moly. But yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of break the barrier if you choose that path that you want, which I would say at this point is the way to go, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Absolutely.
All right.
So should we move on?
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about this? I can read out this last comment.
Yeah.
And then we'll...
Thank you again, Vance, for that comment. That was Vance, a great comment.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of good discussion coming out of that for sure. So, very good friend of mine, Dewayne Byrnes, wrote another comment very quickly, and this is almost just as long, which is fantastic, by the way. All right, I definitely agree with some of the things Vance said above. In addition to not necessarily trying to play every game, one of the most important changes I made to my gaming approach is not necessarily trying to complete every tedious side objective in every game, or even the game itself. When I was young, pursuing every little collection quest was my way of dragging out a game, because games were expensive, and I only got one once in a while. As I got older, I realized or remembered that I'm only playing games for the fun of it. That fun takes a lot of different forms, to be sure, but I realize a game or part of a game is no longer fun. I simply stop and move on, either to a new part of the game or a whole new game depending on the situation. I've started to break a cardinal rule from my childhood: leave no game unfinished. But honestly, I think I'm happier for it. I'm no longer tied down to getting my money's worth or similar objectives that tend to ruin my experience in the long run. On the other hand, if a game is fun, no matter what I'm doing, exploring the world, progressing story, heck, even fetch quests, whatever it is, I just keep playing. There's no need to move on from or power through a game you are enjoying. I spent almost 300 hours in Skyrim, and it was probably the best immersion experience I've ever had. Key to that immersion was having absolutely no goal of finishing the game, but just playing to have fun. Several times I thought, shouldn't I be playing something else by now? But the important question I could not answer was why. I was having fun. I was incredibly immersed when I was playing. I explored every corner of the world and completed way too many quests just because I wanted to. There was no reason to think that experience had to stop until I was ready for it to stop. In summary, regardless of how it compares to childhood, your free time is limited. It is precious, so spend it doing exactly what you actually want to be doing and nothing else. Don't force yourself to finish a game. Don't force yourself to start a new game if the old one is still fun. Just be honest with yourself on what you actually want to play and when. And I think that immersion you were talking about will come a lot easier. So, I think he's talking a lot about, what Vance is talking about, especially at the end there. Just focus on what you actually want to play, and that immersion you're talking about, it'll come.
Yeah. Just having fun first. That's the key of it.
And I also like he makes the distinction, and I appreciate this, that fun takes a lot of different forms. And I appreciate that, that while I was playing, what's a good example? The Last of Us, I wasn't immediately like, God, this is just so much fun. every minute of every, right? But I enjoyed not only the story and the characters, which were much more movie-like than any game I had ever played.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird to say that I enjoyed it in a game, but I did. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was very intense. And it was very satisfying to get through a section, because the way I did the game was stealth. And
right.
I'm starving for stealth. And this was a very cool post-apocalyptic way to do kind of the sneaking around, the intense zombie apocalypse sort of feel.
Yeah, yeah.
And I couldn't really say that it was the most fun game I've ever played, but it was a very rewarding experience.
Right.
And that's fun.
You didn't necessarily have to play everything in stealth, right?
No, not necessarily. I just did. Because I found it to be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
Or rewarding, I guess. Sometimes while playing, I'm like, oh my god, I can't do anything. Like, it's either frustrating or it's just way too intense.
Yeah.
Right? But I found that really rewarding. And so at the end, it was worth it to me.
Right.
And that, in and of itself, is fun. So that's what I think he's talking about, and I like that distinction. Because fun doesn't necessarily mean... Like, a lot of people are like, why would you play anything else but your favorite multiplayer game? Because that's what you have the most fun with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I disagree. Because there are many other games that have rewarding experiences.
Right.
That's fun, too.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of... And it actually goes the same goes for kind of casual players talking about competitive players. Like, why are you playing competitively? That's stupid. That's dumb. It's not fun. Well, they find it fun.
That's what's fun to them,
right.
is just getting pushed to their limits
right.
of their potential. And, like, other people will have fun just, like, goofing around with their friends,
right.
you know?
So I just wanted to point that out real quick. But, he talks about, you know, fun takes a lot of different forms. But if you're not having fun with a game, don't play.
Just stop.
If you're not getting anything out of it,
you don't owe anyone anything.
Right. And that's actually, I subscribed to PlayStation Plus a while ago on the recommendation of a couple friends, and it was fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I played a lot of really good games for free.
Yeah.
I also played a lot of average games and a lot of just boring games.
Yeah.
And a couple of them I got maybe 10, 15 hours in, which is long enough for a lot of people to go like, oh, well, I might as well finish it. I got 15 hours into one, which was Kingdoms of Amalur, and I went, I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm literally just grinding.
Right.
I think I'm done. And I haven't played it since. And I am much happier that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of me doing that, actually.
Yeah.
So when I first got my PS3, which was really only a couple years ago, that was the first game where I was like, no, I'm not going to continue playing this. I'm not really having fun with it. Like, I'm not really getting anything out of it.
Right.
And I'd rather play something else. And I went and played Metro Last Light, which was fantastic. Right? Like, immediately after.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That was... I don't know. So I totally agree with what he's saying here.
I think it's just so funny how, I don't know, his childhood of 100%ing reminds me of so much of my childhood, actually.
Yeah.
Like, the transition of it, you know, like, you remember the first time we flipped on my Super Mario 64 and there were, like, 120 star slots? Basically, like, my Super Nintendo to, like, I would say probably first getting Kingdom Hearts is, like, the end of, like, the 100%.
Right.
But, like, back in the day, like, the only thing in my crosshairs were video games. You know, so, like, I would go, like, balls deep into all of them. There weren't that many, but, like, the ones I had, I 100%ed the crap out of. And, like, it's funny just going back to, like, the HD remakes of Kingdom Hearts and, like, these newer RPGs that I finally got around to playing, like, Final Fantasy, Earthbound, and even Final Fantasy VI. I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just going through the story kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, there was a brief moment where I really wanted to platinum the first Kingdom Hearts, and I got to the gummy ship stuff, and I'm like, no. I will never play this game to the point where I don't like it. Not this one kind of thing, you know? It's just kind of that thing, you know? You don't owe anyone anything, and you're just there to have fun.
Right.
Enjoy the adventure.
Right.
Like, especially, I think that goes, like, really hard with RPGs, because you could get into grind modes or, like, super hard side quest modes that you're stuck on forever, and I think that totally takes you out of it, personally.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
And,
but.
I mean, it's funny, because, like, his cardinal rule, which is leave no game unfinished, like, I definitely did that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But that was my college thing, because I did want to get my money's worth.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not going to get a game for a while, so I might as well play it.
Right.
All the way through. And I did that with Portal 2. Now, luckily, Portal 2 is one of my favorite games, like, ever. So I did not care. I was like, I will do anything in Portal 2. I played the game like 5 times. I didn't platinum it because it wasn't on PS3. But I got 1,000 points in it, and I did the whole 9 yards, right? And I finished the whole thing. And I was like, all right, that's worth it. And the next game that I kind of was, like, really excited about, kind of like Portal 2. And I had games in between these, obviously, that I was also, like, playing to completion.
Yeah.
But I got to Bioshock Infinite. And I was like, oh, man, I'm really excited about Bioshock Infinite. I'm going to play the whole thing. And I played it, and I went, that was really good. And I started to boot up, it's called 1999 mode. So it was, like, the hardcore mode of the game. I started to boot it up, and I went, why? No. Because the gameplay was not the best part of that.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of, for me personally, there wasn't a lot of rewarding gameplay in the game. I liked the story a lot, and that was why I played it.
Right.
And I really liked, certain elements of the gameplay, but did it make me want to play the whole thing over again right away? No. So I left it alone. And I've gone back and played it since, for sure, but at the time, that was what kind of broke it, is I was like, that thought creeps into your head where you're like, you just spent $60 on this game. You better start playing it, because it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that was what happened with Portal 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I mean, you better play it 4 times, because it's only 8 hours long.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, dude, it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
It really doesn't. And I realized that much later after Portal 2, and I was kind of disappointed, actually, because I was like, it was so good. It was totally worth $60. I didn't care how long it was.
It's the quality, not the quantity.
Yeah, so there is definitely getting your money's worth, and, like, that's the difficult part. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I still struggle with that.
Yeah.
I definitely do. Like, I just recently, in fact, did that today. Somebody told me to go play Fallout, because Fallout 4 was obviously announced. Mm-hmm. And I went, yeah, Fallout, I've never played that. I went on Amazon, and it was $10. And I'm like, I bet I can get 40 hours out of that. Why does that matter?
Right?
Like, why do I immediately go to time? Yeah. Like, I can get 40 hours out of that. Okay, well, first of all, do you even want to put a time on it when you're so worried about time in the first place?
Right, that's true.
And also, okay, it's $10. Buy it. Like, what? Yeah. I don't understand why it's immediately I went to time.
Right.
I think there's some legitimacy to that, though. I mean, sometimes
they're the extremes of it, where, like, something ends up being, like, a crapshoot right away, and it's like...
a $20 game is 2.5 hours long.
PlayStation All-Stars.
And it's... Yeah. That's a good example.
My biggest time regret ever. Holy God, I bought that when it was new.
I'm sorry, Paul.
But no, that's an extreme example. But that's the big fear. But it shouldn't be like integrated into every single game choice you make.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. Is like you learn this very early on in college economics about, like, sunk costs. Mm-hmm. You buy a game and then you're like, you feel bad because you only finished the game once.
Right.
And then you're done with it. It's done. You can't recover that cost.
No.
I mean, you can try and go to GameStop, but good luck selling your game back for half of what it's worth, right?
You know where the reward comes into those short, good games? The memories, the experiences that you can tell and share with others, kind of thing. It's like, you haven't played this? Okay, but here's why you should.
Right.
Tell your story.
Yeah. Tell your story to the world. That's
let
Paul's
all
advice.
hears ear.
Yeah. I mean, well said, really. There's nothing else we really need to say.
Let all ears hear. Here's can't hear.
All right. Well, thank you, Dewayne, for the comment, and also thank you, Melissa and Vance.
You guys
are all awesome.
We really appreciate you taking this article seriously and really giving your opinions on this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it was awesome.
This is what we want from just the fan voice in general, just people's voices to be heard. And so we and others who follow our material can get such great insights into thoughts and theories of art, media, and all that.
Definitely. So we really want to thank you guys for talking about this. I know this is the first fan shout out we've done in a while, but please leave us comments. We'll try to do it more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
as you can see, we really, really do appreciate them.
Oh no, we really
absolutely.
do. I mean, these are awesome. These are awesome responses.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the kind of stuff we want. This is the kind of discussion. That we want.
Absolutely.
So, tell us what you guys think.
Yes,
for sure. And tell us what you guys think about this in the comments.
Yeah.
And your experiences and games as an adult.
Yeah.
And all of the different things that we went on rants about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you guys can find us at facebook.com/thefanvoicepodcast.
youtube.com/thefanvoicepodcast.
Twitter @fanvoicepodcast.
Our email, fan@thefanvoice.com.
And our website, thefanvoice.com, where you can find news, reviews, and all that good stuff. And you can also leave us comments there.
Yes.
Don't forget that. They're Facebook. It's easy to do. Yeah.
All that jazz.
So, we will see you guys next time for the next fan chat.
See you later.